let's get into the tech. Let's get into the equipment, the cameras, man. Because this is just the way that the last 24 to 48 hours have unfolded have just been crazy. Like between really it's like the last couple of weeks or so. Like ever since we got the official release and people started getting the R5 in their hands, and of course overheating was the story there. So Sony A7s III got announced yesterday. Videos actually started popping out the day before. It was really weird. Reviews, some overheating stuff came out, and then today, like you alluded to, more Canon R5 news, man. So whereas like as it all has kind of sits right now, where are you at with everything that's going on? I guess
I will tell you this right now. This morning, if you follow me on my channel, we got to start out with the R5 first, because that's really what kicked all this off. The R5 and the R6, like these were these big hyped up cameras, and because obviously the specs were like Canon was really coming with something that they typically weren't doing, especially with the R5 with 8K video. So of course they finally officially announced it, and then of course they also mentioned there's overheating problems, and that sort of spiraled the whole thing with heating. And then a couple of the ambassadors of Canon mentioned there's overheating, and then more of the actual testers actually got in and started testing it and really putting it on the pressure. And we started learning more that there's some issue. There was a really amount of concerns with overheating, and then Sony timed it up with the A7s coming out. It's right now. It's just so interesting because before this morning, I would have told you I'm not concerned with the overheating of the R5, mainly because it's just me personally and how I shoot. And how I shoot is sort of like I record, I shoot. I always know what I want to shoot, so I go and just shoot only what I need. And then so I always shoot, and then I stop, turn the camera off. So the overheating was never a concern to me. And also I was reading up on ways that you could sort of manage the heat with external batteries, external recording. So I was like, there's going to be some ways, and also people are going to try to find solutions. And we already heard that already with Tilta announcing that they have some sort of cooling kit for the R5. So I wasn't concerned. Then Armando's video dropped. That was the first part. I don't know. You saw that video? The one that dropped today.
I saw some. I didn't get a chance to finish it yet. Yeah, I saw some of it, though.
But the big thing that all of a sudden that really sort of set it in tone was the fact that they were just sort of getting in and setting up, and then when they turned it on to start recording 8K for the videos that he released. By the way, that Few Good Men scene he put out was awesome. The actors
Armando
awesome.
is amazing,
the actors
man.
Were awesome on that. So I gotta say, I gotta credit to the actors, and good job for Armando for that. But apparently they only had a few minutes to record 8K because they were originally going to plan to shoot 8K, but then they only got a few minutes because they were setting up and making sure getting everything ready, and then they had to shoot the rest in 4K. And the thing that really said went from not really to start this is serious, was the fact that he mentioned that when you go out of HDMI, because this was the whole argument I was making up until this point, that you can go out of HDMI and you shouldn't have to deal with overheating as much. But apparently the heat management the heat management that's in the R5 is disabled when you send a clean signal out of the R5. So meaning it heats faster without the heat management portion of it. So that's when I was like, okay, so yeah, this is problematic. And I was just like, okay. And now news broke that Canon's actually recalling their cameras.
Which is crazy, man. This is the only thing that I can compare this to is, I don't know if you're a Samsung or Apple user, but when Samsung dropped the Galaxy Note 7, I believe it was, and they started having blowing up, and they had to recall all of the units like that. And it's not that bad yet. Let me just make it clear, it's not quite that bad yet, but it reminds me that it's like the biggest thing that has happened in the tech world in a while.
Yeah,
but go ahead,
no.
continue.
What I was gonna say is, look, it's not like the camera is completely unusable for video, but the key things that were making it the selling points is what's being problematic right now. Because the 4K, because you still, from what everybody has said, if you record normally in 4K, the normal 4K, there's no heating issue whatsoever.
At all.
And even though everybody keeps saying it's nowhere near as good as the oversampled 4K or even the 8K, which obviously that's expected. I was still hoping like, okay, but nobody has said it is bad. That nobody has said that normal 4K is bad. In fact, everybody said it's basically either on par with the EOS R or slightly better.
Or better.
So I was just like, okay, I had no problems with the image quality of the EOS R at that point. So I was thinking, okay, maybe I'll just shoot some 8K, like still, because I was only going to use 8K for like very specific reasons, like multiple, so I can use for stock footages and master shots and maybe some reframings. But that was really it. I wasn't planning to do whole projects in 8K with that. But hearing that Armando was like just in a few minutes of just trying to set it aside to just get things set up, yeah, that's brought up concern. Apparently it's concerned enough that Canon has basically called it back. And this was one of the biggest fears I had when I don't know if you saw the video I posted, like when they first announced the C300 Mark III, and then they sort of brought all the specs of the R5. I put out, I was like, as long as they just be themselves in terms of like reliability, they were going to be fine. They were going to be great. It was going to be great cameras. Yeah. But I was like, because there was, at that point, nobody in the market was competing with them. So I was like, look, just don't rush it. If it seems like there's going to be problems, just take the time with it, because you only have one shot at this. And they did. It's looking like that's not how they went. So I'm going to start probably, I'm not sure exactly how it's going to be with the R5. I still have my pre-order, but we'll see how things go, especially since now they are starting to recall them. So, and then there's the A7S, there's the A7s III.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which, before we get into the A7s III, I just want to say one thing about the Canon R5 is that, I want to ask a question. Do you think, did they shoot too high for the downsampled 8K? And the only reason I say that is because this is really Canon's only second or third generation completely mirrorless camera. So for them, this is still, completely mirrorless camera game is still fairly new. And we've had the 6K downsampled sensors in like the Sony A6400 and A6600 for a while now. Do you think that maybe Canon tried to aim too high going for 8K right away? Should they have done like a down sampled 6K type thing that could have, I mean, it's kind of impossible to know what all is causing these overheating issues, but you have to think like just going from having 4K sensors that you were cropping to now completely uncropped 8K sensors, like, okay, maybe you should have tried for 6K first. What do you think about that?
I mean, I felt like if there was, I don't know. I can't honestly say I know. All I will say is that they clearly felt they were confident enough that they could aim for it. Because, I mean, it's not like we haven't seen it before. Sony has done this as well, just not to the degree that Canon has done it. Their A7R lines are essentially their 8K sensors. And you can downsample, though I don't know if it's completely oversampling. I believe in 24 it's completely oversampling, but where you oversample the sensor and get a much sharper 4K image. But I feel like it's definitely doable. I just don't know. I think they really underestimated the heating system. I was just thinking, okay, maybe they would come with like some sort of fan and like the battery grip, like put a fan in the battery grip and then use that.
That's a smart idea.
Because that's what I was saying. I was like, yeah, just put a fan in the battery grip and like use that to circulate the heat. But that's not. It looks like that's not what they're going to do. It looks like they're maybe building like a mount system that will create like a passive unit for it, which we'll see. We'll see. I don't know to answer your question, I don't know. I honestly don't know if they were reaching too much. I can't knock them for trying to go the distance, especially after so many people have spent years getting on them for not going the distance. Like, okay, I'm like, I can't knock you for trying, but I also feel like you also set a standard for a lot of people like me who shoot on their cinema line of cameras. That you have the one thing that we always felt is that they may not have given you everything you needed, but at the very least they didn't give you everything you wanted, but they at least gave you what you needed and not had to give you they didn't give you bloated stuff. Like there's a couple companies that will just bloat you and throw some stuff at you, and it's like, but it's like, well, why are you giving me this when this is not usable? Like the one that comes to mind is prior to the A7s III was Sony cameras. Like they had S-Log 3 in all their cameras, but I'm like, why are you throwing this in here when it's an 8-bit? I'm like, all your cameras are 8-bit. Even when we go out, it's 8-bit. There's no point of this. Why you keep throwing this in here? So, but at the same time, it's just I'm just like, I can't fault them for trying, but I feel like if they were going to go it, they should have really I always say they should have just given this more time, at least now, because I know a lot of people have seen me as like one of their biggest defenders. But they definitely, based on seeing what things are now, especially everything that's come out, it looks like that, they should have given more time for it. What are your thoughts, man?
Yeah. I mean, the R5 on paper is like, it's damn near the perfect camera. Shout out to Casey with Conspiracy Theories. Damn near shut down his channel. I think if these overheating issues get fixed, as someone who owns the S1H, like just to have reliable autofocus in a sensor that does it, even if I never touch the 8K, is worth it for what I do. So like I've always said that I'm more than likely, I had planned on getting the R5 at some point. I'm not in a rush because I do have the S1H, so I'm in a place where I can do some jobs, save up for it, and eventually that was my plan for that to be my camera. But I think that, all these I'd be crazy right now to pre-order it. I need to wait to get some more hands. I don't understand why they didn't have a fan in it, even regardless. I like when you do something in 8K, like and because the S1H showed that you can have a fan and still keep the weather sealing. I don't know. Maybe they just don't. I don't know if Panasonic has a patent on that technology right now. I don't know. I don't get into those type of details. But because it's possible, even if you would have took another year, you still would have. Like this camera is so advanced. If they would have pushed this camera back another year to figure out how to get the fan and the weather sealing, it still would have crushed the market. Like it would have been the best thing Canon's released.
I totally agree. Like here's the thing: if there's a way to resolve the overheating issue, this camera is pretty much going to be hard to beat. Because even with all the overheated, like I was watching Jared as he was switching between the S1H and the R5, and the difference is almost immediately noticeable. It's like the image out of that thing is so beautiful. I totally understand. Like, if people want to say, "Hey, it's crazy to pre-order," and it is right now, I can totally understand that. I'm just like, if that overheating can figure out an overheating, this camera is going to be a problem. But right now, it's a problem for a different reason.
Yeah, exactly. And I love your idea. I hadn't even thought about that. A battery grip that somehow incorporates a fan. Right there, you've improved the problem. So, but yeah, I don't want to feel like I'm trying to But because again, this was the camera. I'm a Lumix person only because that was the first camera that the G7 was the first camera I ever bought to do YouTube videos, and so I just bought into the Panasonic system. I love their colors, I won't lie, but the autofocus, as I got into like doing more than sitting head and actually taking jobs, I'm just like, I can work around it, but it's frustrating as hell. I'm not gonna lie. Panasonic's auto.
Did you ever see my video on the S1H? Yeah,
I did. I
like the camera, but when I was just trying to deal with that autofocus system, it's depth from defocus. I wish they would just stop trying to push depth from defocus and just really move on to a new system, because that's if they could just resolve that, just like if Canon just resolves this overheating issues, if Panasonic just resolves that autofocus issue somehow, it can be like a really true amazing. I mean, it's still a great camera, but it can be a really amazing camera. And same with the R5. Like, if you look at the R5, everything about it screams good. Like, the IBIS is really good. Like, the few times I've seen it, yeah, it has some wobble to it, but for like, at least for me, where it's more like slow pans, and more like try to do more tripod shots and more pans, not trying to do any crazy running, because at the end of the day, no IBIS is going to replace a gimbal, period. No. But the IBIS was like top tier. Autofocus is top tier, and they've made it better. So throwing in that, especially throwing in 8K and comparing also with those RF glasses, especially like that Bazooka 28-70 f2 lens, like, this camera was in position to do damage. But yeah, it's not ready for prime time, clearly.
Yeah. Hopefully they can get it figured out, man, because that's going to be the camera. And I honestly feel like when buying that camera, even if for some reason they have to do a recall, and like I said, they take a few months to figure it out, it's still going to be the most advanced camera on the market, period. It just is. It's so far advanced that it's going to take these other companies a whole nother generation to even think to match it. And by then, hopefully Canon's on to something bigger and better. So this, we'll see. Canon's gonna. I do have faith that they're gonna figure it out in some way. Like, they aim for the moon. You have to get it. But let's get into this A7s III. So a camera that within 12 hours of being announced was dubbed the perfect camera for video by a lot of YouTubers. I've never seen people flock to a camera. So even the R5, people were more doubtful. People were ready to anoint the Sony A7s III as the perfect camera the moment that it was made official. And to me, it just, looking at it, it was like, okay, I get it. Like, especially, I wonder if this didn't come out in the shadow of the R5 and the overheating issues, where people have jumped on that bandwagon so quickly. But now it also has overheating issues. Now, there's been some reports that overheating issue is only because they didn't change the overheat setting to high from low. Regardless of that, everybody who picks up the camera isn't going to think to do it, so it's going to have some overheating issues for some people. But I don't know, man. You tell me how you feel about, like, I would always say Gerald Undone is a reviewer that I trust. Like, I trust him wholeheartedly over anyone, any like single reviewer, because he goes so in depth on it on some of his reviews. But this was kind of the first time where I'm like, all right, Gerald, how didn't you find this? And at the same time his video drops, we got Dan dropping a video saying the camera overheats. It was like those videos dropped within like 30 minutes of each other. What do you think?
Yeah, no. Well, yeah, I love Gerald. I love Gerald too. I was actually on his live stream when he was testing the R5, and I was testing the R5 when he was testing the R5 and R6. I love like just how technical is. Like, he definitely helps me consider a lot of cameras that I look into. But yeah, it was interesting, like how the reaction was so different when Canon themselves, let's be clear, Canon themselves came out with like, yes, we have some overheating issues. And of course, Peter McKinnon came out. They put it in their own like release launch video that the Canon was overheated issue, and all of a sudden, like, everybody was ready to declare it dead. The Sony comes out, and I even gave credit to Sony on my video on my first initial thoughts video. They were smart. I thought they at first when they delayed the release, I was like, okay, why are you conceding to Canon? If clearly you feel you have the better camera, why are you conceding to Canon? But it ended up being smart because maybe Sony got some insider whiff about this issues with the Canon. Yeah. And they tailored their marketing to really point people to put a contrast between the R5 and the R6 and the A7s III. So I gotta give them kudos for that. And of course, yeah, overheating. And let me respond to the overheating. Dan, who did that testing and got the overheating. First of all, Hugh Brownstone from Three Blind Men and an Elephant also experienced the same issue.
Oh, that's another person I trust. I don't question Hugh at all. So go ahead.
And but they both experienced. But the other thing was Dan actually did a second test, and he addressed that specific thing that really probably was like the heat management option. He actually turned it on, and the same result happened, where the Sony A7s III overheated faster than the R5. It seems like the R5, while it in general overheats faster, it seems to be more self-contained to where no matter the environment, it's going to be roughly the same. Whereas the A7s III, at least, now granted, this could be a pre-production model that Dan had. It's almost certain this is pre-production model since the camera doesn't even come out to the end of September. But but it seems like the A7s III doesn't have that same thing where it's like if it's in very hot conditions, that it doesn't manage the heat a lot better. It seems to manage heat better in more well-controlled environments than it does in very extreme controlled environments, which, I mean, Philip Bloom even acknowledged it during his live stream chat with Carl, Pro AV TV. So yeah, there's overheating problems, but the reaction is so interesting how reaction. Like, Canon overheats. See, Canon total fail. Knew it. Oh, somebody says Sony overheats. Totally discredit. Bring me their heads. Like to me, look, I like Canon for the simple fact that I've worked mainly with their cinema cameras, but the cameras that they tend to work with, and even from people that use their DSLRs, they're so reliable. So to me, but I'm not. That's the reason why I shoot with the C200. But I'm not like loyal to Canon. I'm not loyal to Canon. I'm not loyal to any camera company. I don't care who ultimately triumphs. I don't care if Sony ends up outbeating Canon or Canon outbeats Sony, because neither one of them are paying me. So why should I care if who's going to win if I'm not going to pay? I'm paying them for their camera products. Why? So
exactly.
I don't care. Canon, Panasonic, Blackmagic, whatever camera company. The point is, I'm like, I don't feel the need. I just don't like. I just wish people were more consistent. But I've never seen such a glaring response from commentaries from one camera company to another. But let's talk about the A7s III right now. I think it's a really good camera. I think it's a really good camera, potentially a great camera. Yeah. My only concern is that I personally feel like that it's going to be a camera that I may be having for like a couple years because of its 12 megapixel. It doesn't go with higher resolutions. And if I want to move into trying to do oversampling and higher resolution content, I don't have that option. So I'm eventually going to move away from it. So whereas with the R5, yes, it has its problems, but if they can resolve these problems, that's a camera I see myself having for like 6-7 years. Yeah. So but yeah, the Sony it's a really great, really solid camera. Is it 5 years? But is it 5 years worth of greatness? That's the thing. Like, if that camera came out like 2 years ago, that camera would be like dominating. But now where a lot of the cameras are going into the resolutions that are offering internal raw recording options, it feels like a moment in time camera, for me at least. I don't know how do you feel about it?
Yeah. I feel like if this would have released around the time of the original EOS R and maybe the S1H, it would have by far been the camera to blow everything out the water. Like uncropped 4K. Well, it has a slight crop with a 1.1 crop, which isn't
not a crop. I don't consider that really a crop.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's not bad at all. But then like to do the 4K at 120 frames per second, until the Canon R5, we didn't have a camera that did uncropped high frame rate 4K. Like we didn't. So it would have been full frame. So it would have been groundbreaking in that sense. It feels like a logical upgrade from the A7s II, but it doesn't feel like 5 years. Like if this is what you guys have developed in 5 years, where Canon did what they did and the S1H did what it did and other cameras as well.
I mean, Blackmagic
and what they did with the 6K line.
Blackmagic, the Ursa Mini Pro G2 shoots 150 frames per second in 4K.
That's crazy.
So the Zcams, the full frame Zcam F6 shoots 120 frames per second in 4K. So there's a lot of cameras that can shoot 4K 120 frames per second. This is just the first full frame without a major crop that can do it in 120 frames per second, which is still, you got to give Sony credit for credit where credit's due. They did deliver something that, technically the R5 did it first, but Sony's bringing something that not a lot of cameras have right now. So I got to give them credit for that. I think for the moment, it's a solid camera. I just don't know if it's right for me. That doesn't mean it's not right for a lot of people. I know there's a lot of people I look at, I'm like, they're going to love that camera. They should go for that camera. Hell, I may still...
Especially if you have a bunch of E-mount glass. Like if you have a bunch of lenses for E-mount.
If you are in the Sony system right now, I totally think this is the no-brainer camera. The absolute no-brainer camera.
For sure. What were you about to say though?
Basically what I was going to say was that I don't know if the Sony A7s is right. I'm gonna still get it to just rent it, test it. Hell, I may buy it myself, depending on what happens with the R5. I don't know where I may be. I don't know where I'm gonna be in terms of a small body camera, because that was the main thing I'm trying to look for right now. Because I have my main cinema camera. I have my B camera, pocket cinema camera, 6K. I was really looking for like a nice camera that can do stills for BTS and even be a potential B camera, maybe C camera for major projects, or even anyways. And I was looking at the R5 because it's like it ticked every single box that I was looking for. But depending on what the R5 is, I don't know what else is out there that ticks the boxes that I want. So the A7s II, the A7s III may be that one. I don't know yet, but right now it's just, I'm not sure. Like, I think it's a great camera for a lot of people. I'm just not sure it's the right camera for me personally.
That makes sense. Do you plan on getting it to test it?
Oh yeah. Oh no, I'm going to get the A. Okay. I'm going to get the A7s, rent it and test it. I would be insane. First of all, just as a gear review, camera review content channel, I would be a fool not to get it. Yeah. So, but just to see how it would fit in, just to see how it works, and also maybe potentially see it in my workflow. Yeah. I'm definitely going to rent it out. And by the way, I would tell everybody, definitely just try cameras out, try them out, rent them, see them if it works for you. But yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah, I think overall my like where I'm sitting at with the A7s III is that it's a, especially if you're in the E-mount system, it's a no-brainer. If you're looking to get into like make an upgrade, if you have a 3-4 year old camera, and you may be looking into moving to a different system, I don't know if I would suggest it, just because it's like at that price point, if I'm trying to spend money, it's something that I hope that I don't have to upgrade for at least 3 to 4 years. And I just, I get it, and it's been proven the 12 megapixels looks great. It's a sharp image, whatever. But in every test that I've seen, the R5 blows that image quality out the water. So I just hope that they can get that right, man.
That was the other thing, and not just the the R5. I also wonder, well, what is Sony now going to do with the rest of their lineup? Because especially with the A7s at the price point that it is at $3,500, like I know somebody was saying, hey, just make the A7R, just make that just pure still camera and make that just in the A7 the good hybrid camera that's master of none. But that's what they already are right now, essentially.
Yeah.
So I'm like, so basically you're saying just do nothing. Just have Sony do what they do with their RX lines. It's basically just release the same camera with just 1-2 little changes. But it's but at the same time, I'm looking like, well, Sony's kind of opened the door with the dual card slots where you could do CF Express Type A.
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about that either. That's an amazing,
that was a genius move. Credit where's credit due. That was a genius move where you can basically backwards compatible to both SDs and CF Express. I think that was a definite genius move on that part.
Yeah, definitely. That could be a game changer in the sense that maybe that's the new standard now, because people, CF Express more expensive, faster write speeds, of course, and then I think like a couple weeks ago, like they plan on like making faster speed SD cards now. Like they're working out some new technology too. But the fact that you've now made your camera to where, regardless, it's future proof in at least the memory that it can use, and that's a great thing. I didn't even know that was possible to make dual slots that can take either SD or CF Express Type A. I think it is. That's genius.
Because I know you could do it with XQD, because CF Express Type B is basically the same as XQD, which is like on the Nikons and the big Sony cameras, which is why I was so surprised why Sony didn't put like CF Express backward, go CF Express with the FX9. But that's a different story. I'm digressing. But yeah, but since they opened that door with those two, with that backwards compatibility option, and the fact that, okay, we clearly know you have the media, you have the processor to deal with certain speeds. You clearly have the ability to do resolutions. And you already are able to do oversample resolution of 6K. We already know that. You already do it with the A7 III. So, are you now just not going to go 6K on the A7 III? Even though we know you now have the media speed, you built the new codec, the new XAVC SI. We know you have the codecs to do it. We know you have the media to do it, and we know you can oversample, so we know you can at least try to process it. So, are you now not going to do that in order to protect the A7s III? That doesn't seem like Sony. That's not really Sony.
Yeah, that's not a Sony move.
So I'm just like, so I'm going to be interested to see what Sony does with the other ones of their cameras. Is Sony going to try to go 8K with the with the next A7R with their video? I doubt they will. I don't think they will. I think seeing how Canon situation is right now, I think they're definitely going to try to take their time. Hopefully it's not another 5 years.
We can't wait another 5. They may completely get left in the dust if they wait another 5 years to make an upgrade like this. You're right. That price at $3,500. You got the S1H.
and the R5 all in that same product. And look, image quality wise, I mean, again, I can't really speak fully about it because I haven't had either the R5 or the A7s III in my hands personally. But just on the videos I've seen, it's on par with the R5. And the S1H is slightly better. It has slightly a better image quality. So it's really hard that's why I said it's really hard for me to go full into on the Sony when to go in on this camera when there's so many other things in the market that can really that can also suit the needs. How would you feel? Do you think I don't think the card slots are big enough. Maybe they are, but do you think Panasonic may do something like they'll do a call in for like all the cameras and sort of reverse engineer the card slot to allow CF Express Type A?
I don't think they'll do a call. I think maybe they'll look into it with the GH6, which reportedly is probably going to be their next camera. But I really think the next iteration of the S line is going to be, if they can get this time of flight autofocus that we've heard, and it can correct their depth from defocus system, and they can eliminate the crop. Like honestly, the S1H with better autofocus, the dual card slots that can be used either way, even if they just do it 6K uncropped or whatever, it's better than the A7s III to me without any other updates.
I'll be honest with you. If Panasonic was just to solve that autofocus issues and find some way to give me in all live versions of their 6K modes, I would totally buy the S1H. Because those were my big problems with the S1H, was that the 6K modes, they're so annoying to deal with in post. Because they're
Bro, I tried it once. I've only shot one thing in 6K since I've had this camera, and my computer, I swear, looked at me and said, "Nah, I'm not doing it.
No,
I'm not doing it."
I literally I tried Resolve. I'm in DaVinci Resolve, and I literally dropped in DaVinci Resolve, and DaVinci Resolve just looked at me just like, really? This is what really you're gonna give me this? Nah, we're just gonna sit here and look, but we're just both gonna sit here and look stupid. Like that was my thing. It's like, if you can just resolve that, and I know ProRes RAW is supposed to sort of help that. I have my beef with ProRes RAW. I don't know if you want to go into like about a little bit more on the ProRes RAW, because that was also something that just got snuck in.
So yeah, and they waited till, wasn't it like a day or two before it was supposed to be released, and then say, "Oh, you know what? We're not doing it. It's not coming out." People had already released their YouTube videos reviewing the ProRes RAW and everything, and then they're just like, "You know what? It's not happening." And then like Adam is like, I think a representative from them said that, "Oh, well, we'll try to get basically they're trying to look at it towards the end of the year now." It's like, what the hell happened?
Well, no, actually, they just released it today, either today or yesterday. Yes.
Did they?
They released it today.
Oh shit!
They released it today or yesterday. It was either right after the A7s III or the same day of the A7s III or right after. Yeah. Just this little slide. It's like, oh yeah, ProRes RAW. It's now on the S1H.
It's out. Oh man, you gotta love this camera wars, man. It's crazy.
But
it's just crazy.
But ProRes RAW. So I know a couple people have asked me, why is it that I have issues with ProRes RAW? My issue with ProRes RAW right now, and based on what I hear with Philip Bloom, that may change, maybe. But my main issue is that it sort of misrepresent what RAW is. So the benefits of ProRes RAW right now is the fact that it's very compatible with a lot of machines. You can work well. The only entity it doesn't work with at all is DaVinci Resolve, which personal problem for me, but nonetheless, is that it's, you know, it plays back smoothly. You can play it even like when you're just clicking on it in like a folder, you can play it back. It's very for a very, very uncompressed format. It's like, yeah, for less, I guess, not throwing out as much information as it could, it's a less compressed format. So it still doesn't throw up as many, it doesn't burn through media cards as something like ProRes XQ444. It's basically a compressed version of ProRes XQ44. My issue comes on the RAW side. If you've anybody that has sort of worked with a RAW format, whether if it's Redcore RAW, Canon RAW Lite, Blackmagic RAW, whatever RAW you have, ProRes RAW does not give you control over certain metadata information that is like critical. The main ones is being you can't change the color temperature, the tint, or the ISO. So all of that is baked in. You can't change.
That almost defeats the purpose of RAW.
Exactly. That's why I was like, those are like the main things that we go for RAW. Every single one of the other RAW codecs I mentioned, you can do all of that and then some. Like Canon RAW Lite, which is outside of Redcore RAW, my favorite one. You can change the color temperature, the tint, the ISO, the highlights, the gain, the lift, the gamma. You can change the gamma to whatever log curve you want, or 2/709 or Trek 2020. You can change the color science. Like there's so much stuff you could basically do your whole color correction right in the RAW development tab. And this is mainly for DaVinci Resolve. You can change all of that and basically get like your color correction, everything right there. So then if you want to do like, you know, go with more of a creative look, you can basically use the node and make destructive changes there. With ProRes RAW, you only can change the exposure. So that's why I say that's my issue with it, because it's really not a RAW codec. But Philip Bloom mentioned in his chat with Carl that there's this new plugin called Scratch, and basically it adds more metadata control to ProRes RAW, which is it gives you the white balance, it gives you the Kelvin, it gives you the tint, it gives you the ISO changes. Though the potential problem that I heard from them was that it's quite expensive. The plugin is quite expensive. And that there's I don't know if it's like a subscription pay, or it's like a large upfront pay, but from what their conversation was, it's a costly plugin, which I don't see, which seems silly to me that I have to pay for what a RAW codec should have. So
should be.
So but clearly it is, because clearly ProRes RAW is RAW, it's sensor data, but Apple needs to get off their butts and actually give us the metadata controls. And then hopefully Apple, Atomos, and Blackmagic's beef can eventually like cool off, where they both just work with each other's RAW codecs. But I don't think that's coming to happen for a while. But that's otherwise, ProRes RAW would be an amazing option. But until I just can't recommend ProRes RAW for anybody that's looking for RAW codecs, like an actual RAW workflow, because that's not what is represented. And that's been my beef. But if you're someone that's just like, hey, I wouldn't mind having like a more compressed version of ProRes 444, then yeah, ProRes RAW is option. It's perfect. It's great.
Well, there you have it. I can't, because I've never really worked with RAW, again, because all I've had is Lumix cameras. I've never really worked with RAW. I haven't had a reason to yet. So I was looking forward to the RAW update, but we'll see. I'll definitely probably use it on a job whenever I get another one after COVID's over, man. But what do you think? So like, just to kind of wrap everything up, like we've gotten so many announcements between like the Sony ZV-1, the Lumix G100 or whatever that's called, to the Canon R5 and R6, the Sony. We got a damn 12K camera that was announced at one point. Like
12K, 60 frames per second, 8K, 110 frames per second, 4K, 240 frames per second.
Oh my God, man! What would be something that would completely catch you off guard? I've always said, just so I could get mine out the way, that Blackmagic, I think, is going to announce an 8K camera within the next year. It's going to happen. A pocket, okay. I should say, another one of their pocket line. What do you think? What do you think's the next one on the horizon? Because now everyone's just trying to top each other.
I mean, for a camera to surprise me, well, that's kind of hard. Blackmagic kind of just took that already with their 12K Ursa Mini Pro camera.
Casually announcing a 12K camera.
Like at that point, I'm not surprised anymore by anything. I honestly am not. So I'm just like, okay. I actually. Question is, I think Blackmagic will probably announce either a Super 35 8K pocket camera, or they're going to do a full frame 6K camera.
Ooh.
But okay. I think there will be now. Most likely, I'm leaning towards more of the 8K, and simply because I mentioned this, and that is, they've invested heavily in 8K content delivery. Like Blackmagic has invested heavily, like all their like new Constellation equipments, these equipments that cost there's some Red cameras don't equipments that Blackmagic put out for 8K content delivery. They need the 8K bodies now to deliver that. So obviously the Ursa 12K is the first to sort of handle that sort of business. I think they're going to try to come with, I don't know if it's a pocket camera, maybe it's another, they may come with like a whole new lineup or something, or maybe like a revamped micro. I don't know if you remember the micro cinema camera that they had.
No,
but it's essentially it was the Z Cam before the Z Cam. It's like this little box cube camera that was like designed for Micro Four Thirds, and that you could just pick up. It was literally the size of a golf ball, but it was just so annoying because you had to have all these little plugins and power cords that you had to string all together. But anyways, I think they may revamp that and deliver something like similar to what Zcam has in terms of body. Because I hope so. Because I love my Pocket 6K, but that body frustrates the hell out of me at times, especially with gimbals.
I can imagine that. I've never worked with a Blackmagic Pocket 4K or 6K. It's actually what I had planned on buying before the S1H was announced, but I can only imagine like what that would look like working on a gimbal, because it's just I don't know why I get it. They wanted like their cameras to have this unique look, and it's functional because like you can build it and kit it out, so that shape kind of makes sense to that. But it's just such an odd shaped camera.
Yeah, man. No, like the thing is, it could still have worked for most gimbals. The issue is that the mount is off-centered. It's off-centered to the left. So every time you put a lens on it, you put more weight to the left side, which throws everything off. So, but yeah, I don't know what would surprise. Honestly, I don't know what would surprise me. Here's one thing I want is, I guess what I'll say what I want in the future. I would like somebody to just deliver a small, compact 8K camera with like industry leading autofocus. I don't right now the closest is surprisingly Red. Yeah. It's surprisingly Red with that Komodo dragon. But I don't know if it's too, from what I've seen, it's too limiting for my taste. Like it's limited in terms of codecs, it's limited in terms of recording options and what you can do using the full sensor readout. But I think if somebody, I don't know if who's going to try to take on 8K like Canon did, but I think if there's going to be somebody that will try to do that, it would be Blackmagic. It would be Blackmagic trying to push something in the smaller market. I just don't know. My guess it would be a full Super 35 8K camera, if my guess. Pocket.
They already have the sensor, so that's not the issue at all. Do you ever think Red? I know I keep saying this is the last one. This is the last question I'll present. Do you ever think Red gets into like the more consumer mirrorless game?
No. I don't see. if you're asking me, would they go to like a full blown like stills video hybrid camera? Yeah. I don't think so, because in their mind they've already have a hybrid camera, because their resolutions are so high and their quality is so great that you can pull still images right out from their cameras. So,
good point. But all right, man. Is there anything left you got that you want to present before you tell them where they can find you and all that good stuff?
No, I think this has been a good conversation. I thank you for having me on, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, but y'all can find me on my channel, James Jackson Films, and you can follow me also on Instagram at Mr. Jamie Black. And yeah. I'm just a small YouTube guy who just loves talking about film gear and film productions. So if you love that, check my channel out.